Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with this Monday expert, good friend of the channel, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing well. So one of the things that people may not realize about my channel is I'm the only person that kind of interacts with it. So if you see a response, it's from me. I'm the only one that reads them. I take pictures sometimes and they spark conversation. So I have a comment that I wanted to read to you, and then I thought you and I could talk about it. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. This is from the handle Hacker. Okay. Wow. I thought historically when mortgage interest rates are between 6 to 8%, it is a sign of a healthy economy. Now, Michael, I know you don't want to entertain a housing crash, but if mortgage rates went to 6 or 7% by December, during a time where our economy is in free fall, how could housing not see at least a correction? So you want to take pieces of that? And I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we're already starting to see markets correct in certain areas. You know, markets, real estate's hyper local, and every market's different. We're already seeing, you know, the hot markets are still remaining hot, but we're starting to see corrections already, and the market dynamics change a little bit already because interest rates, 30-year mortgage rates are already over 4%.
Yeah,
you start getting to 6 to 8%. Yeah. We haven't seen that since I don't even know when. You know what, 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Well, actually, I did some research on this. So the last time the Fed funds rate was 6% was actually 2001, surprisingly.
Okay, yeah, 2001. And, you know, I bought my first house 1989, 1990, and my interest rate was 9.75%, you know, interest on my house. And then back in the 2000s when, you know, I was doing a lot of building and stuff, my construction loans and, you know, were in the 9–10% range, and permanent mortgages were a little bit less, but I don't remember being that high. Mortgage rates were in the 5s, maybe 6s back then. I can't remember, you know, for permanent mortgages.
Sure.
Yeah. But, yeah, but anyways, to the point of a housing crash. So it's going to be very difficult to have an actual crash right now because there's so much demand and there's so little supply. I mean, I think the numbers are something like we're short for the demand 4 million units. Now that could be rent and single family, but you know, there's a housing shortage, you know, of about 4 million units nationwide because of the demand that's out there. But as interest rates rise, you know, demand drops a little bit because of pricing. So people get priced out of the market. So prices will correct, you know, but I just don't think that we have the dynamics set up for a crash like we had in 2008-9, because the mortgage market is fundamentally more healthy now than it was back then. And I think even if price adjusts, you know, 20–30%, which they've gone up in the last few years, I think people that locked in at lower interest rates in the 2s and 3s are going to be okay with that because they really don't have any other options. They can't sell, they can't refinance, you know, and if they move, you know, it's going to be just kind of a relative thing. So they can sell for less, but they can buy for less, just like you're selling for more, but you're paying more. So it's going to take a little bit of time for those things to adjust. But an actual crash, I don't think. Now, I don't know what's going on systemically out there from a leverage in the industry standpoint, but I don't think it's anything like it was in 08 and 09. I think the mortgage loans in general are more healthy now than they were then. We're not seeing subprime loans and all that. We are starting to see, you know, a few more exotic products start to come out now with, you know, bank statement loans for self-employed individuals, things like that.
Yep.
You know, but at the end of the day, yeah, you could see a 20–30% correction if rates got up to 6 to 8%. Hear what I said, you know, because I know how YouTube is.
Yeah.
If rates in the mortgage market hit 6 to 8%, yes, your pricing would adjust probably 20 or 30%. And we may see, you know, at least 10 to 15 or 20, even in the 5s. You know, if mortgage rates get into the 5% range, you might see that much of a correction, even with the demand, you know, that's out there right now, because it's an affordability thing.
It is and always has been an affordability. It's a payment thing. So actually,
I want to. People will argue that investors are buying up houses and all that. And really, at the end of the day, I mean, institutional buyers are only about 2% of the market. Now, probably 10 or 15% is single, like you know, individuals that own rental homes, but you're not out there competing, you know, and paying over value for these houses like the institutions are and can. You know, and they're only 2% of it, and they're only in certain markets. They're in the Sunbelt markets.
Correct.
You know, where that's going on. But the biggest demand right now is coming from the millennials, and they're buying on payments, and that's why, because it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent with the rates where they were, but that's changing as rates go up.
No, absolutely. So I think there's a couple of things, and I have the unfair advantage of thinking, knowing I was going to bring this up with you, so I thought about it for 48 hours. So there's a couple of things to kind of think about here. First and foremost, we're already seeing demand destruction. Last Wednesday, I interview a mortgage guy every Wednesday, and he's telling me that brokers are like, buyers are backing out. We have real estate agents that put property on that used to get 20, now are getting 1. We're seeing demand destruction already. That does not mean prices fall, at least yet, right? Transactions fall first, and then if it goes on long enough, we could see price destruction. Real estate is not stocks. It is price inelastic, meaning it's sticky. So I want to go back to this comment, because when I read this comment, my brain hurts because I see 2 different paths, but he's merging them together. So let's talk about it. So let's say he's saying 8% in a healthy economy. So again, I don't know that we get to 8%, but let's just say we do. What else is good? Because I look at that and then I look around the rest of the economy. So if we have 8% 30-year mortgage, what does that mean to me? 1, inflation is still a problem, right? The Fed has gone a little Paul Volcker-like, and they're starting to raise rates between meetings on the weekends, just like Paul Volcker did, right? Because if we get to 8% on the 30-year, the Fed funds has got to be 6, 5.5, 6, and we're only at a quarter. So think about what that really means. So that means inflation is still a big problem. That also probably means wage inflation, right? The dreaded wage cycle inflation has rooted and taken hold. That is something the Fed has said out loud that they are afraid of, because once that happens, watch out. Also, what has happened is consumer behavior has changed. When consumers think inflation is coming, they buy early, right? Because the dollar depreciates over time. So again, if we have 8% 30-year money, it means we have raging inflation problems. So that's the first thing that happens. Then he goes on to talk about if we have an economy that's in free fall. Okay, so that won't happen. That's where my brain like has a seizure, because
say that one again.
If the economy goes into free fall, 8% interest rates, but the economy is in the free fall. So again, the reason my brain kind of doesn't translate that is if we have an 8-year, 30-year, we have 6% Fed funds rate, but the economy is in free fall. The Fed has proven over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that they will just slash rates. If the economy truly is in free fall, we won't have 80% 30-year money, right? So I don't see. Those aren't connected.
I don't know that we can get there. And you got to understand who's investing in those, right? So why are rates that high? Because that's investors. So the stock market would have to be way down.
Oh, way down. Way down.
Because money's moving from there into, mortgages, and they're in mortgages versus bonds. So yeah, like you said, if the economy was in free fall, so the Fed's going to hike rates to cool the economy, and then so they can reverse rates to heat it up when they need to.
Exactly.
And that's what we saw. That's what we've seen over and over and over. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the dynamics are very different than they were in the 70s when we had double-digit interest rates and things like that, because of the demand side of the economy, the consumer-driven economy, and the jobs. I mean, there's more jobs than there are people working, so we don't have the dynamics that could lead to an economy, that is, that's having enough issues to have to push it, towards those types of inflation rates. And then if you start to get heated up like we are now, you just, you cool it off a little bit. And it's just that constant throttling up and down.
Yeah.
The problem is the Fed has been way too behind the curve on these events.
Yeah.
08, 09. And now in 08, 09, it wasn't just the Fed, it was also the mortgage industry creating those exotic products that tanked everything. But now they're just behind the 8 ball, and to do what they did for the pandemic as long as they did, it just makes zero sense.
They did it a year too long. They did it at least a year too long. Inflation is and has always been a monetary phenomenon. Too much money chasing too few goods. We're paying for it now. We're going to pay for it with interest. I think the 30-year owner occupied loan could have a 6 on it by the summer of next year. I really do. But again,
we may get there sooner than that. I mean, we're already in the 4s. I think,
4.5
in the 5s, before the end of the next quarter, probably. You could see, you could see 6s by the end of the year.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, certainly high 5s. And for me, I think the 6, because again, we're already seeing demand destruction. frankly, the slowdown is happening like I said it would, right? A slowdown does not mean pricing crash. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants it to be the stock market. The stock market will tank in seconds, right? I think the Fed, here's one for you. I think the Fed finally raises half a basis point next meeting, which I think is like May 12th or something. I think they're going to finally pull it out. And the reason I say that is they're starting to telegraph it already. Two Fed presidents have already come out in the last 48 hours saying inflation's a problem. We've got to get ahead of it. We've got to get a half. Some of them are talking about getting the Fed funds rate to 3% by the end of the year. I mean, that would be fast.
Yeah, well, they're not Powell, and
No, that's true. That's very
they can
true.
talk all they want. Powell is Powell, and you'll definitely be in the twos by the end of the year.
Mhm.
I mean, it depends on how out of control it gets, and it's with China and their issues with the pandemic, and God forbid it happens again here, and you have more supply chain issues. You could continue to face more inflation, but from a housing crash standpoint, how quick it can happen. It happened quick in 08, 09, but again, that was a banking failure where there was no liquidity, there was no money, you couldn't get a loan. For the most part. Things changed. I mean, some people could, but financing dried up.
It dried up.
So as long as the banks are healthy and as long as the funding is available, the market will take longer to correct, because again, it's an affordability thing, and there are a certain amount of cash buyers that'll pay, but the average individual that has to get a loan, they're just going to be out of the market because they can't afford it. And there's, so the market's going to have to correct to those affordability levels. That takes time, but a crash is what we saw in 08, 09. That was pretty much instantly overnight when that occurred. And, values corrected very quickly, very fast. And I mean, inventory levels, I mean, it seemed literally like that was overnight.
Yeah, my market went down 75% peak to trough. So I was in it watching it every day. And again, so people need to realize this. Demand stopped first. Then supply just never stopped coming because of those damn adjustable rate mortgages. Every week, more products showed up. And if demand,
and it was years. I mean,
years,
instant, in my markets, we saw prices dip 50%, even in the best housing market in the country, DC. I think they dipped about 50% from where they were at the peak. And it took years for the appraiser to not, to change declining market, to appreciating market, because appraisers were putting on their appraisal reports, declining market, meaning whatever you're paying today, it's going to be worth less tomorrow.
Yeah, I couldn't get a bank loan that whole time. Banks did the whole 10-4 loans. I couldn't get a bank loan. Everything I had to do was private or hard money. I mean,
that's what people forget. They forget that when credit markets tighten in environments that we're in right now, with big quantitative easing being stopped, so the Fed's not buying mortgage-backed securities, all that stops. That means credit tightens. That means lender requirements tighten, and the amount of money they're willing to put out there tightens. Those types of things. So that's kind of the shift that happens is, when that liquidity drives up, it eliminates the ability for a lot of people to get loans that could otherwise get loans. And then, like you said, watching deals that are falling apart, that were under contract, fall out of contract, things like that. So, it's starting to happen, but there's still markets. The Sun Belt is still, they're just going nuts still because there's so much demand.
Yeah. And then the last thing you touched on early in this discussion is I don't think many people appreciate the value of 30-year money under 4%, whether it's a 2 or a 3. That is going to freeze buyers and sellers in place. There are people today that won't move ever, right? Because their mortgage is just so, they can't look at a move up home and go, I want to pay an extra $100,000, but my rate goes from 2.75 to 6. They're just not going to move, right? They'll get an equity line or a second, put a master suite on their house or whatever. We're going to have a lot less transactions as rates go up.
Well, it depends, because the theory behind that is their income should be increasing to afford more house. If they're looking to move up, that means they're making more money, which is generally the idea. Millennials are making X now. Their income should, go up by 50% to 100% over a certain period of time so they can buy, more house. So that equation, we'll just have to see when it gets there. And there will be some people that, because that's traditionally how it was, right?
Absolutely. Move up.
Your income grows, you move up. When I bought my first house in 1990, again, the interest rates were around 10%, permanent mortgages. And I got a loan that was a 3-2-1 buy down. It was a deal being offered by the developer because the theory was our income should grow as we're in the house. We couldn't qualify at 9 3/4. So we had a 3-2-1 buy down to where we started at 7 1/4 the first year, or 7 3/4 the first year. Second year it went to 8 3/4. Third year it went to 9 3/4. And the developer paid the fee to buy the loan down into that 3-to-1 product. And then at the end of that 3-year period, the 9 3/4 was supposed to be 30 years.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, that was 1990, and the house was $125,000 too. 2,600 square foot house, nice corner lot, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths or 3 full baths, 2-car garage, 1/4 acre lot, $125,000.
Wow. The good old days.
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been a lot of fun. Do me a favor, and where can people find you?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. That's where all of my social media links are: YouTube channel, Twitter, podcast, YouTube, gregdickerson.com.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.